Hi, lovelies. It's Lisa here, and I'm coming today with a bit of a first impressions of Brigit Esselmont's new little Everyday Tarot mini deck. I have just the deck. I don't have her book. And, just cut to the chase. It's a beautiful little deck. You should definitely own it. It's inexpensive. It's beautifully colored and interpreted, and the cardstock is delightful, and it's super inexpensive. But what is more impressive to me even than the deck itself, which is just a lovely little deck, is what Brigit Esselmont is doing with tarot in her work to mainstream the world of tarot. I mean, she is part of what Michelle T in her book calls modern tarot, part of what this book represents, coming out from Harper Elixir Press, which is the New Age imprint of HarperCollins publisher. The movement that Simon Schuster and HarperCollins and these mainstream publishing houses have to enter the metaphysical world and to enter specifically the world of tarot. You know, this is a really interesting moment for modern tarot, and the Biddy Tarot brand is incredible. Brigit just landed a gig of having all of Urban Outfitters, if you know that store, having all of Urban Outfitters in the U.S. carry the mini deck. You can get it from Target.com, you can get it everywhere, but Urban Outfitters is so perfect, right? Because it's tarot as kind of a really super hip lifestyle accessory, kind of tied to the whole mindful movement. I mean, as mindful tarot, this is very interesting and important to me. So what is it if tarot is entering a phase like yoga entered in the 80s, or meditation has entered, where something that was fringe and weird and esoteric now becomes part of living well, living meaningfully, living a holistic and healthy life. It's a really cool time that we live in, and this deck is part of it. So I wanted to talk about this deck, and I also wanted to compare it to 3 other decks that it is similar to, and to talk a tiny bit about the choices that are made graphically with this deck. It is, first of all, it's produced by Running Press, which is the same press that produced the mini deck that is called Nova Terra, like Nova Terra, New Earth, Nova Tarot, and this is easily bought. Oops, got that upside down. Easily bought, on Amazon. Still, it was retailing when it was. I'm not even sure if it's still in press, but you can see it sometimes in what do I want to call, like kiosks that have, like at bookstores, sometimes Barnes and Noble type stores, little kiosks that have, they have also a little palmistry kit. They have Running Press just does a whole bunch of like kind of novelty gift item type things, and that was the first of this kind of tarot deck produced in this kind of modern tarot register. How does the tarot come out to us as something that's more of an accessory, less, it's not quite right sounding, but more of a lifestyle choice than a kind of esoteric, kind of spiritualized practice. So this deck, which I edged, and I've actually done a video about it. It's at one point, I can't remember where it emerged. This deck has very simple imagery. The corner colors relate to the suits. So you've got blue for cups. You've got this sort of, plum color for the trumps. You've got red for wands, and a kind of light green for pentacles. Trying to remember what the color is. Oh, that's right, it's a kind of golden color for swords. And some of the cards really recall Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. So the 10 of Swords. Notice how there's spades at the top of the sword, sort of a call out to the French suit symbols. the suit emblems, spades for swords, clubs for wands, hearts for cups, and diamonds for discs or pentacles. But some of them are a little bit less less clear, a little more abstract. I mean, you can sort of see the Eight of Swords if you think about the Rider-Waite-Smith image of the blindfolded woman surrounded by swords, or the Four of Swords with that kind of sense of suspension and rest. But this is kind of a less clear-cut version of the Two of Swords, right? It's a little idiosyncratic, this deck, but it's really cool, and it's using very simple, very clean images to convey message. So it's much more graphically available. And that, I think, is what's key with this movement toward a modern tarot. Tarot more as a lifestyle choice and less as some kind of esoteric, out there, new agey crystals and kind of earth-based spirituality. Less on the side of religion and more on the side of lifestyle. Sort of the way in which meditation is less about spiritual practice for a lot of people and more a choice for healthy living. You know, so in the same breath that you might talk about, you know, cutting red meat out of your diet, you might also say, well, I meditate, and now you might say, and I read tarot. So it's that kind of movement toward a simplified, much cleaner vision of tarot. In 2004, which was before the running press, I can't remember when this deck came out, the Nova Tarot. I'll put that in the notes if I can. But in 2004, Robin Ator, who's actually a Portland graphic artist, came out with the International Icon Tarot. And this is a super cool deck. So it's taking tarot and just like, you know, graphic images in, oh, I don't know, like, you know, on airplanes, like the safety cards, or signs on walls that are meant to convey messages like, you know, rest room or exit or whatever, without words. He's using that kind of language of graphic icon to convey the symbolism of the tarot. And notice how what that means is that for the most part, gender gets removed, race gets removed, cultural signifiers get removed, and you get down to this kind of really abstract, like what are the bare bones of the tarot symbolism. So a card like the Five of Swords is a great example, because this is a card that's all about position. What does it mean to win? What does it mean to be defeated? What does it mean to be completely destroyed? You know, this is a card that's about the positions we hold within a scenario of gain and loss, of victory and defeat. And so it's about position, and it's not so much about the specificity of the context. It's more about the kind of abstract relationship among people within a social situation. So, you know, it just, Robin Ator's deck here just boils it down to these really clean, really simple graphic elements. So again, it's like this participation in a movement away from esoteric, hermetic, you know, initiation, and into a kind of language of meaning making and symbols that speaks more directly to folks. So it's more accessible, right? Less mysterious, less mystifying. Robin Ator's International Icon deck. And then, I want to say 2014, but I could be wrong. It doesn't say. So the Golden Thread Tarot, Tina Gong's deck, and this is the plastic version. I love this deck. I love the way the cardstock feels in this deck. The shuffleability, the beauty of the golden, the imprinted golden thread. Tina Gong, again, she's coming like Ator from a kind of graphics background, I think. I mean, she's really interested in the use of mobile apps. The mobile app that goes with the Golden Thread Tarot is a really great tarot app. Really just great, even if you don't have the deck. It's just a great source of meanings. Oh, this card is a little scratched. But again, now this doesn't do the sort of erasure of gender in the same way that Robin Ator's deck, or the complete erasure of cultural signifiers. But notice how clean and simple the lines are, and this sort of modern feel of it by calling forth this imagery of like the circuitry of a computer. What do you call that? Chip, right? I like that Justice card. You know, and then sort of really interpreting the most fundamental parts of the symbolism. So justice, the sword of justice, which cuts both ways, which cuts through delusion, which cuts through error, but is also then the arms of a balance scale, right? So you've got both justice's sword and justice's balance in one image, and you don't need the human figure there. You just go straight to the symbolic core. So, you know, again, it's like this movement toward a deck that has a kind of modern feel that goes straight to a sensibility of getting at meaning without too much rigmarole. That is the impulse behind Everyday Tarot as well. Now, it's also just simply beautiful. The packaging, these running press boxes are kind of, they're nice, but I find it very impractical. The little white book, which is kind of a chunky booklet, has quick meanings. It has upright and reversed meanings for all of the cards. They're good. They're, you know, 9 of Swords. You are weighed down by dark thoughts and disturbing feelings. Worry, despair, and anxiety are keeping you up at night. The more you associate with your fears, the more they will rule your life. Reach out for help. You know, the Nightmare card. Reversed, you are experiencing deep inner turmoil as a result of your thoughts and mindset. Fear is stripping you of your life force. Get a reality check and evaluate which fears are warranted and which are not. Release your limiting fears, beliefs, crippling fears, and self-doubt. So she tends in the reversed to go toward an intensification or more shadow side of each of the card's upright meanings. So this is, I mean, I think it's, you know, it's a good, the sun. You are surrounded by warmth, radiance, and vitality. You are lit up, energized by possibility, growth, and success. Radiate your light and shine it on the world. They're very serviceable, quick meanings. I love this color scheme. The purple and gold, I think, is fabulous. And just coincidentally, I was in the middle of reading this book, which is about Zen Buddhism, Chan Buddhism, and social action, called Liberating Intimacy. It's like totally academic book, but I just think it's you know, it's the same color scheme. I'm not saying that they stole the color scheme at all. I just think it's funny. It's sort of like, you know, this kind of Buddhist, kind of modern engaged Buddhism, and then modern engaged tarot. The colors are purple and gold. These are the colors of what it is to be modern. I don't know, sort of random. Anyway, I'm not a huge fan of the packaging of the running press little mini decks, but it's okay. I am not going to keep my cards in this. I will keep the box, but I won't do much with it. It's got this sort of plastic, this tricky plastic, box within the box, which the old Nova Tarot had a similar version of it. It was a little bit more structured, but it was equally, slightly easier to open, but equally not so practical for storing the cards. Really great for displaying the cards and for gift. These are perfect gift item, just in time for Christmas. Gift item type purchases. Buy the cash register, pick them up. If you're buying for yourself, you know, I'm not going to use the box. The card stock, though, unlike the Nova Tarot, which was this kind of glossy, it has pretty backs, and you know, it's beautiful colors, but the cardstock was like that, you know, kind of glossy. It just doesn't feel very high quality. Brigit Esselmont's deck is really nice, that kind of buttery. I mean, for an inexpensive deck, it's got nice buttery, that sort of soft but silky smooth feel, and then this lovely edging. So it's not that kind of plasticized gilt edging. It's the more matte gold edging, and it's beautiful. It's perfect. It's flawless. Oops, sorry about that. I'm shaking my camera. The purple on the backs and then also on the book, you'll see it's got this kind of mottled, like watercolor kind of touch to it. It's pretty. When I first saw it, I was thinking, is my deck damaged? And I went online to look at other images. So I'm not sure it really works. I think almost a solid purple would be more effective. That is, in fact, what we have in the cards themselves. So the other thing about this deck is it comes with 2 extra cards. So the first one says 7 steps to an accurate and insightful tarot reading. Create a sacred space. That's a really supremely beautiful place to start. But then I'm not sure that the remaining 7, ask a question, choose a spread, I can't read it backwards, shuffle and lay out cards, interpret the meaning, answer your question, reflect, and take action. I'm not sure that those remaining 6 steps would help a beginner in any way, because they all, each of those 6 steps require a huge amount of investigation. Like, how do I ask a question? How do I choose a spread? What is a spread? This, I think, is a nice card, though, this quick tarot spreads card. I like the options for the 3 card spreads that are given here. I particularly like the you, me, us. And that's a beautiful 3 card idea. And I can imagine this being helpful for someone beginning. This deck, you know, and this set are good for beginners, I think. But I think they're really good for more experienced tarot, or more, what I want to call adventurous, maybe deeper dive tarot folks as well, because of the way in which the clean symbolism, like with the International Icon or the Golden Thread Tarot, it just liberates us to move toward what's universal in the tarot. So don't think this is just a beginner's deck. One thing to notice is because it is, it's so much focused on this clean line, all of the figures, all of them, are in profile, which is just a really interesting, I mean, it's sort of an offshoot of the design, but it's interesting when you realize, oh yeah, you know, whether a figure is facing us head on, like the Emperor is in the traditional Rider-Waite Tarot, or in profile, actually is something significant. The Hierophant not facing his acolytes, that's actually kind of significant. But here with Adam and Eve, the fact that they are in profile allows us to see very clearly how Eve is looking up, Adam's looking at her, and then look at the angel. So there's some really interesting ways in which that design choice to have everyone in profile, because the images don't have features on the faces, so you kind of need it to be in profile in order to have noses and eyes, etc. That choice leads to some interesting decisions. You know, justice is not looking straight on. That's interesting. I mean, in essence, all of the figures that are looking straight on in the Rider-Waite deck, there's a reason for that. I'm having issues here. Maybe I'll flip the camera so this is easy. No, I'm being lazy. Okay, I could flip the camera. Some of you will probably comment below, like, next time flip the camera. I know, I'm lazy. I'm sorry, guys. It's nice that you're putting up with me. So I'm not going to go through all of the cards, but I love this Judgment card. I hope you're getting a feel for just how beautiful this deck is. The gold and the purple, I love it. Now, there are some things that I think are really interesting. Some interpretations. There's a way in which this deck plays with gender. Let me go to the wands, for instance. So in Robin Ator's International Icon deck, the really simple icons did away with gender by and large. In this deck, it's not so graphical, but notice how we have female figures where we might be used to male figures. The Knight of Swords in this deck is a female figure. The Six of Wands is a female figure. So although gender is represented in a much more traditional way in this deck, the artist, who I can't remember, it's not Brigit Esselmont, I can't remember who did her artwork for her, but the artist's choices give us some other gender decisions. I love the Seven of Wands, which is one of my favorite cards. I think of this as the Bodhisattva card, the card of really of a self-sacrifice, even though it's a stand your ground card for many people. For me, she's fighting on behalf of us all. Anyway, so it's a really lovely deck. The thing about, oh, and I like this Six of Pentacles, which is a card I've had a lot of problems with. Again, notice that this is a female figure, as are the two beggars. Notice too the way in which begging in this card, it's more ambiguous. So this is not, I mean, it would have been very easy for the artistic choices not to be at all interesting, you know, but they are. It's a great deck. Anyway, yeah, so the Everyday Tarot, which is not so everyday. It's a special little deck. I am going to be playing with it, and actually I will now flip the, I am going to flip the camera and do a quick reading with it. So I'll be right back. So let's dive into these cards in action. Now, before we do, I should mention that the color here in this lighting is looking way more blue than it is purple. It really is a lovely shade of dusky purple. It looks, yeah, it looks like the purple of collegiate sports teams, like the University of Washington or Northwestern University. If that means anything to you, I'm not even a sports fan. I just like purple. Okay, so there you go. It's more purple than that. I also want to talk a little bit about size. So this is the Tarot de Maria Celia, and it's a kind of quintessential U.S. Games tarot in a tin. The cardstock is a little glossy. It's thin, but not too thin. It is definitely thinner than the cardstock for Biddy Tarot's Everyday Tarot. You know, and this is just like creamy, dreamy, delicious cardstock. I mean, it's particularly nice cardstock for such an inexpensive deck. The one thing I will say about the US Games formatting, I think that the Tarot in a Tin is what's called bridge size. It might be poker size. It's a standard playing card size. And especially for little hands like mine, it's a pretty good size for shuffling. The problem with small decks is they become hard to shuffle. You know, there's that kind of Goldilocks size of a deck that makes it easy to shuffle, and that's the size of tarot cards that we're mostly used to. But the small, the really small and the really big are hard to shuffle. Nonetheless, this deck shuffles pretty nicely, right? It's, you know, you can definitely shuffle it, riffle shuffle. Of course, you can overhand. With thick cardstock, I often like to shuffle by breaking the deck in half and then shuffling each half together. One of the things, of course, you know, with nice cardstock, even with not so nice cardstock, when you riffle shuffle, you're definitely going to damage the edging, etc. But, you know, this deck was $9.95 on Amazon, US dollars. You can get a backup, you know. So shuffle with impunity, I say. And this deck I've shuffled a whole bunch. Let me just do it Give it one last nice little shuffle. And let's dive in. So with our quick tarot spreads, I really like the what is in alignment with my higher self. Is that I can't tell if that I'm hoping that this is in focus. Oh, hold on. I'm playing with light. Oh, the light, now that coloring is better, isn't it? Okay. That color is more true. It's still not quite, it's still more shifted toward the blue. What is in alignment with my higher self? Let's start there. I also like these 3 card spreads, but we'll start with what's in alignment with my higher self. Five of Swords. Yeah, okay. So this card that's about positionality. It's about what it means to win. This is a card that often troubles me. It can be a card like in the Anna K Tarot. It's a card that's associated with great cruelty in that deck. It's I think she calls it the cruelest card of the deck. It normally has 3 figures, like I showed in the Robin Ator deck, the international icon. So it has a sense of, you know, the victor, the defeated, and the totally devastated. Here, I think this is more subtle. And seems to me like this figure is gendered female. The sort of gender is ambiguous, actually. So what does it mean to win? Now, this deck, the card was reversed. The way I'm working with reversals these days is to assume that the tarot is trying to help clarify. It's asking me to understand what this card is. It's saying this card is important. It's in some ways blocked. Its energy needs to be released, and let's understand how to release it. The 9 of Pentacles. Yeah. So what's in alignment with my higher self? You know, I'm at a moment right now where I'm encountering a shift in my perspective from a world of winners and losers, of the super competitive world of academics, of, you know, brainiacs striving to be great, to do great things, to figure the world out, that sort of hyper-intellectual world. And also just in my heart, this sense that we live, I mean, this is like the 5 of Pentacles, you know, and 5s in general. These are cards that can often point our attention to loss, to the way in which, you know, we can see how over time things change, and we can notice in all sorts of ways. We can notice what we lose over time. The 5s are cards of perspective, cards of time and temporality. And there can be a poverty consciousness there. So this is a card that's about loss and about a world of zero-sum game. 9 of Pentacles is a card that's all about abundance. You know, cultivate our garden. I keep getting the garden, which is the 7 of Earth in the Tarot of the Spirit. The 7 of Pentacles is called the garden. And that's really, I've been drawing that card. It's been stalking me these past few days. So how do we deal with a world of gain and loss, of victim and victor? We recognize that we're in a world of abundance. So what's in alignment with my higher self is to shift from the poverty consciousness, the loss consciousness, the vanquish and victor consciousness of the 5 of Swords into a world of the 9 of Pentacles. Well, it's a pretty card, isn't it? Okay, enough for now. I'm gonna, yeah, put this up there. Okay. As Lisa stumbles into incoherence. Okay, y'all. Thanks for watching.